Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm with my podcast partner, Tom Laidlaw, the former NHL defenseman for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report, coming to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And Tom, we're just coming off the All-Star game here now. And last night there were a bunch of games here. And, I thought, well, what do we learn about the second half? And I'm looking at these games now, and here's what we've learned. The Washington Capitals, they won 4-2 last night over Montreal, are still the Washington Capitals, still the team to beat. The Toronto Maple Leafs beat Nashville. Nashville still got problems. Dallas won 3-2. I think we got to say they're for real.
Yep.
They're a really good defensive team. They can keep the scoring down. And here it is, Vancouver again, 3-1 over St. Louis, a very good St. Louis team. I think we have to start making sure that we pay attention to the Canucks. I think now that we're in the second half, they've proven they are for real as well. And, of course, Anaheim lost to a struggling San Jose team. And I think now we've fully established that the Anaheim Ducks are, probably headed toward a rebuilding period here. I don't know they can even get beyond that. But, Tom, let's start with Nashville. They've had problems for most of this season, and I think in the beginning it was more Rene. But if you watch that game last night, it seems to be a defensive problem, and that's so hard to believe with Roman Josi on that team, Ekholm, who's an excellent player. Do you see it the same, or what's going on with the Brett?
Yeah, for me, it's not a lineup issue; it's an attitude issue. There, we talked about this before, I'm not picking on one guy, but I think he kind of epitomizes. They apparently were after that Matt Duchene for a long time, went and got him signed as a free agent, to a 7-year deal, $8 million a year, and paying him $10 million this year. So the expectations are pretty high. When I watch him play, I just don't see that commitment to being a good team player, a good two-way player. You see it in bits and spurts, and I think that kind of is indicative of the whole team. They just don't seem to have bought in. And we talked so many times about the teams that I love right now. The Boston Bruins, St. Louis, Tampa's getting into that group now, the Washington Capitals, those teams that now have said to themselves, okay, we are committed to winning here. And it really doesn't matter what our talent level is, although those teams are very talented. They're playing that good team game. And when I say that, I mean, they'll get the puck inside the blue line in their zone. And you see a lot of times with a Nashville player, they're trying to make that big play, like make a 50-foot pass in that position, instead of just chipping it out into the neutral zone to make sure that there's no turnovers going back to their end. That kind of stuff you're watching, you just see. Again, to me, there's no question Nashville has the talent. They've got the goaltending, they've got defensemen, they've got the forwards. The talent is there. It's just the attitude isn't there. And they've made a coaching change, and it still hasn't made any difference. So that's my concern there with that team. And they got to be getting to that point. To me, it doesn't matter what happens in the next few games here. I guess there's that, they have to push to try to get in the playoffs. But that's not a locker room. That's not a team that is a contending team in my eyes right now.
Well, you made the point too, they've changed coaches. And, the one thing that people said when they got made the coaching change there and got John Hines is, hey, look, he's going to bring some structure to this defense. That the one thing about the way Peter Laviolette is, he played like a pressing offensive system. He was always up pushing everyone up, and now maybe they'll be a little more coordinated. But we really haven't seen the change yet. Does it take some time, I guess, to buy in? And
no, I don't think it takes time. I mean, to me, hockey's hockey. Yes, you can have a team where you say, okay, let's open the floodgates a little bit. Let's go press offensively. Or you can say, okay, guys, we need to be a little bit careful. We need to make sure we get that third man high in the offensive zone for the good back checker, all those things. But at the end of the day, hockey's still hockey. To me, I'm just watching a team when I watch Nashville that doesn't really – and I don't want to say that they aren't committed to winning, but I think it's one of those cases, again, where I really think they're so talented, they think they can just go out there on the ice and play – and they're going to get away with making those little mistakes and say, well, okay, I'll just do this time, even though I know it's not really the right play. I'll try to get away with it this time because we're so talented. The teams that aren't as good, or the teams that are good but have learned how to win, don't do that. They say, well, listen, I don't want to try to get away with a play that I shouldn't be trying here. It doesn't matter who the coach is. Especially when you get guys on big contracts like that. And again, I'm picking on Matt Duchene, and I don't mean to say just him, but I think he kind of epitomizes the team. It's those guys, it's the teams that say, okay, I need to make the smart play here. You're not always going to do it. It's not always going to work out your way, but more times than not, you want to try to make that smart play. And I just think with Nashville, it doesn't matter what the coach is. It doesn't matter what system it is. It's just a bunch of guys that so far have not learned how to win as a unit.
How close are we getting, Tom, to kind of running out of time? Let's look at this now. So Nashville has 51 points, and the two wild cards there in the West are at 57. So there's
played 3 or 4 more games than them too, right? So Nashville's only played 48 games there. So where the other teams, yeah. So I mean, listen, mathematically, there's no question Nashville can still make the playoffs, but and again, they're such a talented team. You can't say to yourself, okay, we got to make that decision to rebuild. That's not the position this team's in. It's like you've got to try to make the playoffs here and go for broke for it. So. Listen, we could be sitting here in June and calling them the Stanley Cup champions too, because they're that talented a hockey team. It's just that they haven't learned how to win. But listen, we met last time Pittsburgh won the first of their last 2 cups they had. It's the same thing coming back from the All-Star break. They're a struggling hockey team. They weren't that good. Crosby wasn't playing that well, and all of a sudden they went and won the cup. So that same thing can happen with Nashville, but there's no signs of that happening right now.
Yeah, it's hard to believe when you watch them play that they could win it all. It just doesn't seem, as you said, you can just tell something's not right. At some point, and this is a good thought too. Obviously, they got to the final, they didn't win, and they seem close. Like, okay, a couple of some tinkering, and get this team buttoned down a few things, and they could be right there. But they really haven't been able to do that. Is that a trap you fall into? And at what point do you say, all right, this group can't do it? You've got to, I don't mean you go into a total rebuild, but that you got to do something pretty dramatic.
Yeah. I mean, to me, as I watch that team, I'm saying that right now, this team doesn't have it. When Craig Berube came in and took over the St. Louis Blues last year, one of the first things he said was we had to fix the locker room. And to me, that's the issue in Nashville. They need to fix the locker room. It's the wrong mix. It's the wrong leadership. It's the wrong attitude. And that has to change. To me, that's already been determined. I think we said that 2 months ago when we thought there was a good chance Laviolette was going to get fired because of the way the team was playing. And it wasn't just the record, the wins and losses. It was the way they were playing the game, the way they were losing hockey games. So to me, they're well past that point. To me, that if I'm watching that team, I'm making the decision. I've already made the decision. That team has the wrong mix. Something needs to change. And again, they made the coaching change just like St. Louis did. Berube came in and fixed it. Hines has not done that. And I'm not saying that's his fault. Maybe it's beyond that in that hockey team.
Well, let's move on, but a similar situation. The Montreal Canadiens, Tom, they're at 51 points as well. And a wild card for them is at 61. They're a full 10 out, and they've actually played 51 games. And Carolina, the last wild card team has played 50 games. And the reason I wanted to talk about them, and I think you bring some insight. I know you never played in Montreal, but you're a former player and you understand that. Can you sort of sum up like the pressure of what it is for what it is in Montreal for that organization? Like them not making the playoffs is just totally unacceptable for this organization.
Yeah, you know what? I think I can sum it up in one story, and it was amazing because I think I've talked to you in the past about how much respect I had for Larry Robinson. I got to play with him at the end of my career out in LA, and I remember watching him play so much. Those great series against Philadelphia where he could do it all and shoot and score and hit and fight and do everything. And he was to me for the Montreal Canadiens in the 70s and 80s. There, just like I said, Mr. Everything, and a fantastic player. We were playing when I was with the Rangers. We were in Montreal one night, and they're like any defenseman, you're going to get beat sometimes. And Ray Ruotsalainen, I was flying down the ice, carried the puck, and went past Larry. I think Larry tried to hit him with a hip check along the boards. Rayo snuck by and went in and scored. And I think to myself, okay, that's Larry Robinson. I mean, he's 1,000 other times he's made a great play, no big deal. The Montreal crowd started to boo him. And I remember sitting on the bench thinking to myself, are you kidding me? You're booing Larry Robinson after all he's done? Like I remember watching the Gary Dornhofer hit breaking the boards and fighting Dave Schultz and doing everything. And he got beat one time and they're booing him. And I think myself, it was actually a great lesson for me as remembering that, listen, this is pro hockey in any place, but especially in a place like Montreal. It does not matter what you've done in the past. You got beat on that play, they're going to boo you. And there's no greater lesson with Larry Robinson for me. So I think that pretty much says it all there, that, listen, they die hard fans. They'll cheer. They want the team to win, but they expect to be in the playoffs. They expect to be winning Stanley Cups. That has not happened lately. So,
yeah, I mean, you really are only as good as your last shift in Montreal. And it's just so hard to explain. Like, and it's even different than Toronto. Like, Toronto is such a hockey mecca.
Yeah.
They live and die with their Leafs, and there's so much coverage, and there's a lot of talk from Leaf Nation. Leaf Nation knows it's hockey, but it's different in Montreal, and I can't really describe it. But it's because there's it's in two languages.
Yep.
There where there's the French fan base and the English fan base, and on game day there, everybody's talking about, particularly in the playoffs. Everyone's talking about what's going on. I mean, there was the ghosts in the Forum.
Yeah.
And everybody says the ghost came to the new arena as well. Like, the long tradition and the great teams they had there, and they were such a powerhouse. That's why it's to me it's just sad that I look at in the standings, and they're so far out now.
Right.
And everyone knew they were a bubble team coming in, but I think everyone had expectations that they were going to be a lot closer than this.
Yep.
And what do we do now, Tom? Is Marc Bergevin in trouble? What do we think?
Well, and I think we both think the world of Marc Bergevin, and I think he's done good things. Gallagher got hurt, Drouin got hurt, so that certainly hurts him. But you're right, he has not built. I don't think it's gone the way he wanted to go, where he's built that team that is not only a contender now, but will be a contender. That's what a lot of the good teams are doing now, right? You look at what the Rangers are doing here in New York. Could they squeak in the playoffs? They're slipping out a little bit, so it's going to be tougher for them. But that team is built to win for the future, right? And I just don't see that. I think the world of I think he's the best defenseman in the league still right now, in Shea Weber, but he's on that big contract. He's getting older, so it's not like you've got that young stud coming up that's a defenseman that's going to help you for many years. Carey Price isn't getting any younger. So the future for the team, that's the problem I'm seeing, is that I don't see that not only are they not making the playoffs this year, but I don't see that as this great team coming down the road. Now, I don't know their lineup as well, or their young kids as well, so I may be missing that, but I don't see those young players that are saying to myself, okay, the future is great for Montreal. Yeah, they may not make it this year, but fantastic future coming up. That's the problem for me when I think about Marc Bergevin.
Well, during the All-Star break, I saw two reports. One report suggested that Carey Price maybe was getting a little weary of not being a contending team and might look to try to get out. And then I saw our good friend Larry Brooks talking about the possibility of maybe Carey Price even this year going to someplace like Carolina.
Sure.
Now I don't buy that for a minute.
Right.
Like, I think there's zero chance of that happening. But do I think that Carey Price could end up somewhere being a goalie with a top team? Well, why not? We've seen the stranger things than that happen. So what's your feeling about that? Can you see that Carey Price kind of pushing the Canadians to sort of move him and get him to a better situation?
Patrick, a little bit different circumstances, right? But Patrick Waugh, way back, in the day when he came to the bench, got yanked, was Mario Tremblay was coaching. He walked right by him and went. In those days, the owner sat right behind the Montreal bench. There was no glass separating them, and he walked right over the owner and whispered that he wanted to get out of there, and that ultimately happened. So if it could happen with Patrick Waugh, it certainly can happen with Carey Price. Again, different circumstances, but I agree with you. Carey Price, I would think at some point he's got to say, listen, I want to win a Stanley Cup here. And my career is not, I'm getting older. My career is coming to an end here. So I can see that happening. A tough trade to do, though, right? Because you're Montreal. If you're Marc Bergevin and you trade Carey Price, you better get something back. You better make sure you've got another goaltender that's going to be able to carry the load, too. That's the problem. So I agree with you. Anything can happen. I certainly could see Carey Price going them, maybe very quietly saying, listen, guys, it's just not even necessarily demanding a trade, but letting them know that, listen, if you've got a chance to move me, go ahead and do it. But man, that's a tough one for Marc Bergevin because again, it's not like he's Lou Lamoriello with a real history of success there right now. So everything that he does, like the magnitude of a Carey Price trade, if it doesn't work, then he's done for sure there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this as we were talking about Carey Price. If you look at some of the positions in professional sports, about which position comes with the most pressure, like I would say quarterback of the Green Bay Packers because of the history there. Bart Starr, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. Like if you're a quarterback of the Packers, you face some pressure because there's history there. I think the top left-handed hitter, or maybe just the leading hitter on the New York Yankees, it faces a lot of pressure too. Yeah. Everybody follows the Yankees, and when you're the top guy, everybody knows the history of Mantle and DiMaggio and Babe Ruth and Roger Maris and the right field porch and Yankee Stadium and so forth. There's a lot of pressure there. But I also think the goalie in Montreal, just in general, I don't care who it is, is going to face some pressure because it's Montreal and because of the history there with Kenny Dryden and Patrick Roy and Jacques Plante and Bill Durnan. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Guys that have played there, but I just can't imagine. And Carey Price has the proper demeanor and disposition to handle all that. He seems like a perfect choice to play there. So I have no idea whether he wants out or not. But you know what? If you're a great player, you want a chance to win. And right now, and you said it best, we don't see the Canadians as having a chance to win. They just don't set up, like a team that can win the cup. And there are more teams than ever that are capable of winning cup. In the old days, we used to be able to identify in one hand the true contenders, the top contenders. And now I think half the league is a contender.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. Very good point. You're right.
But Montreal's not in that group.
No, they're not in that group. And the bad part that we touched on already is that they're not in that group even going forward, I don't see, where there's so many teams that are built to win now and continue to win in the future. And they're not in that category either. So, but yeah, guts. I mean, if I'm Marc Bergevin, though, I mean, I've got to be sitting there. It just has not gone his way, right? I mean, I could, you traded away PK Subban. It was that a problem in the locker room? It looked like you fixed that. Then you get Drouin, guys get hurt. Carey Price has been hurt in the past. He's been better this season, but man, that's a tough one. I would like to see. I think it's important for the league that Montreal does well too. I think it's me too. So, and it just hasn't happened.
Well, and look, I've covered the league as we all know, a long time, and I just think the league is not whole if the Canadians are not a contending team. You want that. You want that the engagement with the French hockey base, and it just makes it a much better league when they're contending. So I think it is important, for the Canadians to do well. Let's shift gears a little bit. Maybe we should have led with this because now it's getting a little bit old. But we're coming off the All-Star break, and I'm sure you were glued to your set, Tom, watching the All-Star game. But, there's a lot of discussion, as there is every year, about the format. And my feelings on it. This is, look, it is what it is. It's the annual NHL convention. We all go. We celebrate the game. The game is not for us who watch on television. It's for the kids who are there. And there's always a lot of kids at the All-Star game as well. And it is what it is. But have we outlived it? Or its usefulness, or do we still have room for this game moving forward?
To be honest with you, I think the league, I know they've taken some heat, so maybe do things differently, but I'm looking at the All-Star game. You're never going to get the NHL players to compete at the same level that they do when they're trying to win a Stanley Cup. It's just not going to happen. It's an All-Star game. They're not going to, players are very rarely going to want to hit and do the things they have to do to win games at that level. But I think the league is good. I mean, some of the stuff they did, they have the women come out there and participate in the skills competition. They were fantastic athletes. I think, to me, the All-Star game is a chance to maybe draw in some different fans, not the usual NHL fans. So now you're the women, so you get young girls. We go do these clinics all the time. You see young girls coming into play, and I think it's fantastic. So those girls can watch the women play at that stage and see their talent level, the skills competition, and the game that they played. So I think that was great. I like the little stuff they do. I mean, I think back, was it a couple of years ago when John Scott got voted in, the big tough guy, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is a terrible thing."
Loved it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So sometimes you're going to get that kind of stuff happening because the fans get an opportunity to vote in those players. So I'd listen. It's the All-Star game. If you think back years ago when it was just the All-Star game and it was like 24-22 was kind of scores they had. I mean, it was terrible. I think they're doing their best to provide some entertainment, make it accessible to some new people. Like I said, with the women's hockey out there. So I wasn't as down about it. Plus, it wasn't as exciting. So I got a chance to use my new juicer and make my tequila salad a little bit more. So that was pretty exciting. That was the byproduct of it. So
I know some people that would need tequila salad in order to watch that 3-on-3 format. But I believe in the All-Star format. I still think it's important. We never should lose sight of that. These games are not, designed for every fan in the world. That they really work in the cities that they're in. It's a big moneymaker for the league, and of course, the money is spread to the players and so forth. So it's all good in that regard. But I would say this. I like the idea, and apparently they are going to do this, to continue to mix it up whenever possible, and to continue to strive for different formats. And now they're talking about next year going to a geography type format, country versus country, like a mini World Cup,
sure.
Where and they haven't come close to deciding exactly how it's going to work. But it could be Canada, the U.S., Sweden, Finland, Russia, Team Europe. I don't know how they'll do it, but they'll kind of put it in together. Do you like that? But let me toss this out. Would it be better if we could throw some money at the KHL and have the KHL All-Stars come over here and play? I mean, would the fans like it if we could body check some Russian players?
Again, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Again, my issue is going to be, though, is the goal to try to make some game more competitive because you're bringing over the Russians to play. And if it's just a bunch of Russians that are going to go play just like the guys over here already play, kind of going, and I shouldn't say go through the motions, but again, you're not going to get that same intensity. Even if you bring over the Russians to the KHL, I don't think the rest of the All-Stars from the NHL are going to play with that much more intensity to make the game that much more exciting. I think it's still an all-star game. So you're never going, if you're looking to get it to be that competitive a game, I don't think it's ever going to happen. It's just the players aren't going to do it. They're not going to risk getting hurt. And here we go again. So one of the players gets hurt in the all-star game because they're trying to up the intensity level. How are you, like, if you're Sebastian Aho and he goes plays and, now Carolina is fighting for a playoff spot, how do you think the Carolina Hurricanes and their fans are going to feel about that? That now you've hurt our chance to make the playoffs because you want to make this All-Star game better. To me, I love all the extra stuff around it. Like I said, I love the women's being a part of it. I love the skills competition. I think it was great the way they brought Wayne Gretzky out there, Brett Hull, Bernie Federko, all those kinds of guys, the old St. Louis Blues. I think they're doing a great job to make it as interesting as possible. And like you said, like in the city, I think it's very similar now to the outdoor games, right? People are starting to say, well, there's so many of them. But in that city where the outdoor game is, it's a big deal. It may not be nationally as big a deal, but still is a big deal. So,
yeah, well, and I agree with you. I mean, I threw that out there just to be devil's advocate. But, this is not the 1970s. In the 1970s, you did NHL versus Russia. It was really a big deal.
That's true.
I think guys would have, or did crank it up back then.
Yeah, that's very true
for those games. But I think it's different now. The world is smaller. We play with and against Russians on a regular basis in the NHL. The distinction isn't as great as it once was. It wasn't our way of life against their way of life, so it may not matter. But it could be fun. if we just continue to mix it up, maybe bring over the European the Champions League champ and play them against an all-star team. Every year is kind of a different format, and that way, if nothing else, it's at least different. But I want to ask you about the women. They had 3-on-3 hockey, Tom, and we had the skill contest, and then it just doesn't seem like they're close to getting the league the way that they need it. And I don't see it happening anytime in the future here. It almost feels like the NHL is going to need to step up and help them.
Right, and I agree. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the end game. I'm not saying that the NHL is trying to set it up that they fail right now so they can grab it and take over. But listen, the women's hockey, to me, their skill level has continued to get better and better. And like I said, your coach, like this area where I am, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, the girls playing hockey now are better and better all the time. So I think the actual level of play is going to continue to get better. It's already better than it was in the past. So I think nothing but great. The question is going to be, can it sustain, like from a business side? I hate to be like this, but it has to be sustainable as a business. Are enough people going to come and watch them play? Are they going to get a TV deal? All the same things that help the NHL be successful. But like you said, I think the key then is it's going to have to be the NHL that kind of brings them in and kind of has them be like an arm of the National Hockey League, and they can generate some more revenues. They're not going to generate revenues like they are in the National Hockey League, but it's going to be the key, because these women have to get paid. I mean, it's a commitment for them. They really can't be having other jobs and try to be a professional hockey player as well. So they've got to get paid. You've got to pay all the expenses and everything. So again, it's got to work from a business standpoint too. But
well, they really do have to go on scholarship. Really, kind of like the WNBA and the NBA. And especially for a lengthy period of time, so that they can. It'd be nice if we could see, starting out maybe with teams in, New York and Boston and, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and, kind of have a bus league starting out. And then as it grows and draws a wider audience, and then you try to move it. Like I think it'd be fun to have a women's team in Vegas with they're the kings of marketing right now.
Yeah.
Could they market that team there in Vegas? And what about if you had a women's team in Seattle when they're introduced? So you have the Seattle Kraken in the NHL, and then you have the Seattle whomevers in the women's league at the same time. It would be nice to see if they can kind of grow kind of together. Now, it's not going to grow at the same rate that NHL team is, but I think women's hockey, I've been impressed by the growth of the talent level. Like if you saw a game 5 years ago and you saw a game now, it's completely different. They're just faster and stronger, and they shoot better. It's no different than the way the NHL was. And I tell people this all the time. When I started covering the NHL, only 1 in 6 players, in my opinion, could one-time the puck. Yeah. Now it's commonplace. Everybody one-times it.
Yep.
But back then, and there were pylons out there, and by that I mean there were guys who didn't skate at the same level as other players.
Who are you thinking about? I
don't want to name names, but but you know who they are. No. But there were pylons. There were players that you could roar around. Mike Bossy made a living, roaring onto the outside, scoring like that. And now everybody just skates terrifically, and it's great speed, and the game's so much faster. That's the thing that shocks me, Tom. When you watch like old films of from the 1980s, I'm stunned at how slow it seems to me now.
Totally different game entirely, right? The equipment being different, training methods being different, the style of play, the reason players were drafted is different. You wouldn't draft a Tom Laidlaw to be Tom Laidlaw. Now Tom Laidlaw would have to change his game to be drafted now. And I was drafted because I was a big, strong farm boy who could, bang people on the boards and clear out in front of the net. And now you still want that, but you got to be able to skate. You're drafted now because you can skate, move the puck, and get out of your zone. So totally different game, man.
Well, but you would be a different player because you would have come up in a different environment. Everybody now, like they've been schooled in defense since peewees.
Yeah.
Like even the youngest levels now they talk sophisticated defense. Like it's really really amazing. So anyway, as always, this time has gone by too fast. We've run out of time, and we appreciate you for watching. And we'll be back later in the week for part 2 of the later calendar.
Everybody enjoy your tequila salad, right? Stay healthy out there.